Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Meinzer. I am the Director of the Office of Student Fellowships and Awards, and I'm joined here today by two members of my staff. Ms. Sina Crow is the Administrative Assistant for our office, and Ms. Morgan Robledo is our undergraduate student worker. We're also joined by Ms. Judy Moore from Study Abroad. She's not running the show this time, but she's here, right? So Study Abroad, this is a collaboration between the Office of Student Fellowships and Awards and Study Abroad. And our very special guest of honor today is Daniela Quinones, who is a senior and was a 2019 Frederick Douglass Global Fellow. So we're delighted to have Daniela here with us and looking forward to hearing about her experiences and tips and advice that she has for all of you, our applicants for this fellowship. So I'd like to start out though by giving a brief introduction to my office and the fellowship itself before we turn it over to Daniela. All right, give me a thumbs up if this slideshow is appearing for you all. Okay, perfect, thanks. All right, so the Office of Student Fellowships and Awards was founded in June of this past year to help students who are applying for external fellowships, scholarships, other awards for study abroad, research, graduate school, etc., internships. So we work with students applying for a whole variety of awards, and study abroad awards, research abroad are just one set of what we do. So if you're interested in study abroad, recommend that you look at the resources on the study abroad website at UTEP, but also check out our office. So there are some scholarships and fellowships I'll talk to you about at the end of this short presentation, which are ones that you should also be thinking about if you're interested in spending time overseas on someone else's dime, right? Which we all are at this point, especially. So a couple of things. I want to draw your attention to the Hawkins Scholarship. This is an award for UTEP juniors, so you have to have between 60 and 89 credit hours. That's total credit hours of, from UTEP and from any transfer credit hours that you may have brought in. And there are other requirements, eligibility requirements for this scholarship. So please go to utep.edu/student fellowships, click on the Explore Fellowships and Scholarships, click on Hawkins, and you can read more about that. It's $10,000 for a UTEP student in any major, a citizen of any country, and you can apply for this award starting over the summer. The deadline is in October, selection is in November. So we had our first cohort of Hawkins Scholars this past fall. So I encourage you to apply for that. Second, please follow us on Twitter. So at UTEP Fellowships, you can stay up to date on all of our events, any workshops, any upcoming fellowship deadlines. It's a great way to learn about scholarships and fellowships. If you didn't have them on your radar, now you have them popping up in your feed, so you can be thinking about which ones might be right for you. Also a plug for my office. We are hiring. We're a new office. We would love to have some applications to work with us from students who are also interested in fellowships. We're looking for students who are excited and used to working with other students, because that's what we do. We coach students through the writing process. We put on events. So if that's of interest to you, please check out the descriptions on JobMine. And then the second thing there actually is we have a program for freshmen and sophomore students to have them start thinking about fellowships and scholarships from the beginning of their university career. So that's called the Undergraduate Fellows Program. And this year it is a funded program, meaning that there's a stipend of $1,000 to basically prepare your Hawkins Scholarship application. So we pay you to apply for more free money. I don't know how more attractive I can make that, but we are currently running our first cohort of undergraduate fellows, many of whom are in the room today, so welcome. But we are recruiting for our second cohort, which will run from April through June. So if you are interested in that and you're a freshman or sophomore in terms of credit hours, we encourage you to apply. And that will be on our page on MindTracker. So the application is not up yet, but it will be up shortly. If you'd like to be on the mailing list to be notified of when it's available, please write to us at studentfellowships@utep.edu, and we will let you know when it's available, but we'll also put it on Twitter as well. Okay, so let's talk about the Frederick Douglass Global Fellowship. This is a program run by an organization called CIEE. I can't remember if there's another E, but anyway, it's a large study abroad organization that runs programs for students around the world. And this is one of the programs that they run. So it is a program based on honoring the legacy of the abolitionist and statesman Frederick Douglass. And what it pays for is a fully funded summer of study abroad. It is specifically for students of color, and we'll go to the eligibility requirements in a second, but there's an emphasis on leadership, social justice, agitation for positive change, and cross-cultural understanding. So a couple of these words that I've put in bold here, leadership, cross-cultural understanding, these are ones I recognize also from other fellowships like Fulbright, or the Rhodes Scholarship or Mitchell and Marshall Scholarships. So as you explore fellowships and scholarships, you'll see a lot of these selection criteria pop up again and again. And when you read something like this, it's a clue that in your application materials, you need to be talking about what you have done, accomplished, plan to do in these areas. So when you read a fellowship funder's website, they're giving you insight into what they're looking for. This is the profile of a Frederick Douglass Fellow or of a Boren Scholar. The award covers full cost of travel to and from the site, participation in a 4-week, 3-credit study abroad program sponsored by CIEE, just 2 E's. This program has 10 fellows every summer, and this summer's cohort will be based in Dublin, Ireland. So very exciting. Daniela, I know, spent time in London, and was it Northern Ireland or Ireland? We'll get to that. But yes, so there's a lot of travel. It is not a traditional classroom experience. And I think we would all, I know I would love to go on this program this summer. So it's not a hard sell. Eligibility. You need to be a current freshman, sophomore, or junior, minimum GPA of 3.0. A note on GPAs. I always tell students, if you meet the minimum requirements to apply, you apply. Don't read into it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Oh, I have a 3.1. They put 3.0 for a reason. So stay with us. It's because they know that what students bring to the table is more than their GPA. And so there are ways to work around if you have concerns when you're applying for fellowships about that question of the GPA. There are ways to talk about your experience. It's not all about the GPA. All right, so this is a program for US citizens, national permanent residents. You must identify with an ethnicity typically underrepresented on study abroad programs: American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Black, African American, Hispanic Latino, or Native American Pacific Islander. Now, the deadline is coming up fairly soon, February 14th, but you do have time to work on this. It will take time, but having roughly a month to put this together, it is not as extensive an application as many others. So I say that not to say it doesn't take time, but just you're not writing an essay. This is the main part of this application is a video, which of course will take a lot of time to create and produce and polish. But I believe that just about a month, it's doable if you can carve out the time to work on it. How to apply. And I'd also like to add that if you are a freshman and you think, well, you have 3 years of eligibility, apply all of those years. If you can apply this year, apply. If you don't get it, apply again the next year. I've applied for things that I didn't get the first time, and I thought, what are they going to think if I turn it in again? But actually, you get better. And so sometimes the second time I've applied for something, I've gotten it. So it's worth doing. All right, so how do you apply? You go to the Frederick Douglass application website on ciee.org. Link is in the email that I sent out earlier. You have to provide one letter of recommendation from a faculty member or administrator at your institution. So this should be a faculty member who knows you well, someone who can speak to your commitments to those criteria. So we looked here: leadership, social justice, positive change, cross-cultural understanding. Pick a faculty member who you've worked with, who you've taken a class with, multiple classes. Think carefully about this and give them the materials they need to write you a strong letter. So I always tell students, share your application materials. If you have a rough cut of the video, or maybe you have an outline of the video, send them that so they can see how you are portraying yourself. But then also give them some information about what else you would like them to talk about when they talk about you. Think about a fellowship application as the first time that the committee will meet you, first and only time, right? Especially if there are no interviews for a fellowship. You want to have each component of your application introduce a different aspect of who you are in relation to the selection criteria. So a letter of recommendation is really important because it's the only piece of the application that you don't get to do. So you need to give your recommenders everything that they need to write you a strong letter. So you send your CV, your resume, you send a draft of your application materials. And then I also like to say, send a brief couple bullet points highlighting experiences that you had working with that professor, or maybe it was a research position, maybe it's a staff member, but you're picking somebody who knows you really well. So you have experiences you've had with that person. Highlight those, talk about, I did this project, and make it fresh in their mind. You'll also supply a transcript, so those can be ordered online, and then personal video, which I will leave to Daniela to talk more about. It is quite a complicated process, but I think it's a really interesting way to do a fellowship application. That's not very common. Most places do essays. I think a video is harder than an essay, but I think it could also be more engaging than sitting in front of your computer and just typing. Okay, so the last thing I want to share with you is a list of other fellowships and scholarships that you should be thinking about if you are interested in this fellowship. The first one is Fulbright. Fulbright offers over 2,200 grants. Yes, 2,200, not 10, 2,200. So this is an award that I think UTEP students have a very strong chance of getting. So we've had a Fulbright awardee. There are more. People on this call could be Fulbright awardees. I'm making a major push to recruit applicants for Fulbright. You have to be a senior when you apply, or a recent graduate. But I would also like to invite juniors to enroll in a summer Fulbright course that I will be putting on. It will be a asynchronous course. There's no grade. It's all about getting ready to apply for Fulbright. So Fulbright sends you on a fully paid 9 to 10 month trip overseas to either teach English in a foreign country, or conduct research, or pursue something like a 1-year master's degree program. Those are a little more rare, but there are a lot of options to travel to pretty much any continent. Some countries are more competitive than others. These are all things that we'll talk about that you can learn about in the summer Fulbright course. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to write to us at the studentfellowships@utep.edu email address, and I'll put you on a list to be invited to information sessions and enrolled in that course. Also, for those that are a bit further along in their academic career, there are several graduate fellowships: Pickering Fellowship, Wrangell, and Payne, for those of you who are interested in a program that will pay for your master's degree and then help you get a job. So these are great pathways programs. Bourne Awards also has a hiring preference for the federal government. It is very hard to get a federal job, and so having preference points on your application can really help. So Pickering, Wrangell, Payne, and Bourne, and for that matter, Fulbright, are government-sponsored programs. Oh gosh, okay, most of these are, never mind, I can't limit it to that because so is Gilman. But the ones at the top, above critical language and Gilman, those have hiring pathways preferences built into them. So an excellent way to get overseas if you plan to work in foreign affairs. It is not just for students in political science or the social sciences. You can be an engineer and work in the Foreign Service. There are all sorts of roles that you can go into. So I encourage you to look at those. Boren Awards is for language study, critical languages, much like the Critical Language Scholarship, less commonly taught languages. And you don't necessarily have to have a background in that language to apply for Boren or critical language. Critical language scholarships are a summer program. I encourage you to look at that if you're studying a language at UTEP, maybe on their list. Freeman Asia provides support, partial support for awards, study abroad in Asia. And then the Gilman Scholarship is really kind of the crown jewel of the scholarships that we have at UTEP, because so many of our students have won the Gilman Scholarship. So we've done an excellent job moving students through the application and receiving this award. I believe this year we had, if we count fall and spring, we had 13 Gilman recipients. So this is an award that you should apply for if you plan to do study abroad, but also look at the others I've put on this list. So I'll pause there. Are there any questions about any of this? I can't see the chat, so if Sina or Morgan, if you see anything in there.
Good morning. I do have a question regarding the requirements of like citizenship and that. Is it also possible for international students to apply for this scholarship?
Alan, that's a good question. And I wish I had a better answer to say that it was, but a lot of these are funded by the government and they put on that restriction of citizenship. That being said, there are several awards that international students can apply for. The Rhodes Scholarship has a Global Scholars option. What was the other one? Gates Cambridge is another big one. The Schwartzman Scholars Program. So we can talk, we can also talk about which ones might be right for you. Now, I think, Frederick Douglass would not be one that international students are eligible for. I did have a list of databases for study abroad scholarships. So there are awards beyond these big government programs that have broader eligibility. So I'd be happy to share that email. If you want to send me an email, I can forward that study abroad for international students list to you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. Feel free to put it in the chat.
Hi, Dr. Meinzer. I had a question. I know, well, yesterday we discussed, and I have a daughter, I have a family, but I was just wondering if like some of these study abroad options, if they do make accommodations for anything like that, or if you know about that, or if that's just something in general that I would want to stay away from, that I wouldn't be eligible for.
I think that's, oh, sorry, Megan. I think that's an excellent question. I'm glad you raised that because this is part of what I think is being acknowledged as an obstacle in a lot of these fellowships, but a lot of them do actually provide family allowances or dependent support. So absolutely do not set aside these fellowships. So Fulbright actually, depending on the country. So when you apply for Fulbright, you look at the country profile and they list what types of support they offer. And I did find through this past cycle, I had a student apply who had a family and who wanted to know about dependent support. And so what we ended up doing was looking at the Fulbright country page, seeing that, yes, they did offer dependent support. But we wanted to know, well, how much is that? I mean, is that actually enough to bring a family member over there? And so we wrote to the Fulbright Commission in that country and asked about what the general levels of dependent support were. And so we were able to get an answer on that. And in doing so is also a good way to let the Fulbright Commission in that country know that, hey, we have an applicant who is interested, so they can keep an eye out for it when the application comes in. They know, oh, we've talked to that person. So I don't know for sure about the other fellowships here. I do know that the British scholarships, Rhodes, Marshall, Mitchell, Gates, Cambridge, Many of those do offer family allowances. So that's something to look at on the funders' websites, but it's also something to follow up with them on, because as you may find when you look at fellowships, there's a lot that's written on the page, but it can also raise a lot of questions. So I always tell students, when you're looking at fellowships, if you don't find the answer on the page and you've searched thoroughly through it, you've Googled it, you can't find the answer anywhere, write to the program officer. It's their job to answer questions from applicants. And I just encourage everyone, if you have a question about your eligibility or about the level of support and you can't find the answer on the website, it is absolutely okay and encouraged to contact the funder and ask. It's better to know than not know, because you don't want to spend all that time applying and then find out that it wasn't quite the level of support that you hoped it would be. There is nobody who sits at that office and says, oh, they asked a question, that's a black mark on their application. The funding agencies, this is how scholarships work, fellowships work, is you have an administrative manager who interfaces with applicants, who organizes information sessions at the funding agencies. So for example, at Fulbright, at Boren. And then you have the selection committee. So they are not in the same building. Their selection committees are based across the country. Those are the people evaluating your application. So don't be afraid to ask questions either of our office, but bearing in mind that our office doesn't have the final say on things like eligibility and funding. That lies with the funding agency. But I think those are both really good questions. Any other questions so far?
Hi, good morning. I have a question. Okay, so about how many applicants does the Frederick Douglass Fellowship admit?
So they select 10 scholars, but the number of applicants is, as far as I know, not made public. So there's actually really, it can be hard to know. Some fellowships do publish their application statistics, but I couldn't say for Frederick Douglass. So you're asking how many people applied?
Or how many people get admitted, actually?
Oh, 10. Yes, 10.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions before we turn it over to Daniela? Okay, great. All right, so I will turn off my screen share here. And so I'm very pleased to introduce again our speaker for today, Daniela Quinones, to talk more about the Frederick Douglass Fellowship and her experiences. We're so glad to have you here and look forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Thank you, Dr. Meinzer, and thank you everyone who is here. I am super happy that I got this opportunity in the first place, and I want to be able to help more UTEP students to actually apply for this and be aware of the fellowship and what it really is, and even get an idea, because sometimes we hear what it is, but we really want to know, okay, what happened? Because that was my question when I applied. I was like, is this even, is it a scam? Like I always told my professors when they called me, I was like, is this a scam or what are they saying, right? But it is a great opportunity. So I'm going to share my screen. That way I have like a small presentation for you guys. Let me see where this is at. There we go. Can you guys see it? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, good. Okay. And you guys can hear me well? Yes, all good. Okay. So hi, everyone. As Dr. Meinzer said, my name is Daniela Quinones, and I'll move this. Oops. See if I can move it. There we go. I am a senior now. When I went, I was a sophomore becoming a junior. So that's when I got to go to London and Northern Ireland, which was Belfast. That's the two places that they took us with the fellowship. I am majoring in rehabilitation sciences with a concentration in physical therapy, and I am minoring in psychology, just so you guys get a little bit of a background. And I like to say my major just because it is very diverse, those who are admitted. You don't have to be a political science, as Dr. Meinzer said. You don't have to be like interested in politics or being an entrepreneur. You can be anything, any kind of major, be interested. You just have to show that you have that leadership drive, that you have the initiative, and you will be a good candidate for this fellowship. So when I applied, it was 2018, going for that summer 2019, just to give you guys more of an idea. And when I applied, we did have to write an essay. We had to make a video. We submitted our transcript. But when I applied, I felt that it was a little bit harder to apply due to the fact that I had to apply to UTEP first. And once you applied with UTEP, they would choose 3 students who would actually be able to apply for this fellowship. Because when during that time, the letter of recommendation needed to be written by the president of the university. So I feel that this opens, makes it more open to more people applying, which I feel that is great. And I remember when we applied, I did tell them, like, you guys made it harder because it's not that easy to get a president to write a letter of recommendation. And more importantly, they don't really know you, right? So I did get to talk to Dr. Natalicia once when she was gonna write my letter of recommendation, and that was it. So when you are getting your letter of recommendation, I feel that it's super beneficiary that you guys get to choose who writes that letter of recommendation. Someone who really knows you, and more importantly, that has seen you, your work ethic, that can talk about who you are as a person, because it will be more personalized. Another thing I do recommend when asking for that letter of recommendation, to submit that a CV or a resume. That way they also get an idea of other things that you've accomplished, and they can even mention it little by little during that letter of recommendation. Just a small tip. So talking more about my experience, as I said, I got to go to London. So here are some of the pictures that we took. Honestly, this was, I love this experience. It was life-changing. I never thought I would do study abroad because it is expensive. Let's be honest. There's a lot of things that come into it: flights, food, accommodations, getting a passport if you don't have one, all these things that sometimes we really don't have the money. And even if you start like a GoFundMe and anything, it's usually not possible either way, because we are kind of in that mindset that, oh yeah, I don't have the money to do that. So it's not even on our vicinity. But when I applied for this fellowship, at first I was like, yeah, like, why not? They only choose 10 students in the country, but the no, I already gave it to myself by not applying. So I thought, okay, let's apply, let's see how it goes. I was chosen by UTEP to apply as well. So I applied. And it was, honestly, when they called me, I was like, oh, really? Like, me, I'm going to London, right? Because they just give you a call. I think I just had gone out of class and they called me, and I was like, wow, like, okay, so what do I have to do? What is going on, right? So first of all, one thing that I really like about CIE is that they do help you with everything and anything. So I didn't have a passport. So they did help me with the process of getting my passport, and they even paid for that passport as well. So that is also something that you want to consider. They do help you out with even those extra fees that you need in order to go to this fellowship. So here in those photos, you can see my cohort at the, well, they're obviously everywhere, but you can see them more clearly at the top, well, not top, bottom right. That was our first day. We went to London Bridge. We went to the Tower of London as well. They took us as an excursion, kind of an orientation, to really get an idea of, okay, we are in London. This is what's going on. So there were 10 of us. They came from all over the country. Some were from New York, some were from California, some was from Washington. So I know the one that was closest to me was Kiwi, and she was actually from San Antonio. So it ranged a lot. As you can see, we were all underrepresented students. So that is part of this fellowship. They do want to make more students who are of color be able to experience study abroad, because the numbers are low. So they are trying to get more students to be involved in this. Moreover, we also got to do a lot of excursions. So they did take us to Oxford, Laneham Palace. We went to Brixton, and that is one of my favorite places in London, which is really in the outer areas of London. It's still London, but what we got to learn there was more about really what it meant to be a underrepresented or an immigrant in the UK, how it has evolved, really how do immigrants live in the United Kingdom, and how do they still take part in their culture? Because I did meet a lot of people from Spain, Colombia. I had people from the Caribbean areas. So it was really nice to really get kind of an idea of how culturally diverse we are in a country, and more importantly, how immigration, how immigrants, how segregation is seen over there, because that is something really big with this fellowship, because obviously it is in honor of an abolitionist. So he was trying to really get underrepresented people out there and give opportunity for everyone as equal. So it was a really great experience that we got to do. On the top left, you can also see a group of people there. We actually got to do like a TV show in a way, and it was talking about Brexit. So if you guys haven't heard, it's when the United Kingdom wants to separate from the is it European Union, something like that. So we got to talk about important topics that for myself I have never heard of, but it kind of made me aware of what is really out there, made me globally aware, and also kind of get me going of, okay, so it is not just what happens in El Paso or Ciudad Juarez or in Texas. It's really making you aware of what is going on in the world and how can I make that change. So that is something that I really valued from this fellowship, because it was really open to you finding what you needed in that moment. So we all were able to kind of grow in certain aspects that we felt were important. So that it was in London. And as Dr. Meinzer said, this was not a regular sit in a classroom every day. It was more of going to places, writing reflections, kind of finding really what was important for us there. And just give me a moment. My dog literally just came in and there we go. It's because she closed the door and she won't stop crying until I let her out. So with that said, that was kind of like the London portion. We would have class every day from Monday to Friday, and then we had the weekends off, which was really nice. So it was kind of going to class, but not really. We never really, I think the only time we sat in the classroom was the first day of class. And we talked about our names and what our names meant for us. So that's something that really stuck with us, because we all come from different cultures. So we all had our own perspectives, and it was really eye-opening to see how we were all kind of impacted by it. Okay. So then, as I said, they also took us to Belfast. And this is important because obviously we were honoring Frederick Douglass, and also we were talking about segregation and how equality is still not a thing, and we're not aware of it. So basically, Belfast, as you know, it's in Northern Ireland, so it's not part of Ireland with the country. So Northern Ireland is part of the UK. And when we went, we were thinking, well, what are we going to do there? What are we really going to learn? We knew that Frederick Douglass had gone there, to do some things. However, once we were there, we all kind of got that cultural shock and kind of just impacted by how much segregation is there, how much of a separation there is between the Northern Ireland, which they call their Protestants and Catholics. So usually the ones who are from Ireland, they see themselves as Catholic. Those who are from Northern Ireland, they see themselves as Protestants. And there is a wall separating them, like an actual wall, separating the two kind of cultures in Belfast. So it was really shocking to see how like things that we don't know that are happening are still happening at this moment. When we went in 2019, and I believe that it's still frozen, the government in Northern Ireland is frozen. So the parliament just one day decided, you know what, we cannot come into agreement, so we're not going to agree in anything, and they just froze it. And it's been, I believe when we went, it had been 3 years since nothing had happened. The government just kind of said, we'll see you later when we actually decide, and the government was frozen. So it's really, it was really a shock to us all to see how they had to live there, because we did had Ray, who was our guide, and this upcoming cohort will get to meet him a lot more because he will be one of the professors. And Ray, he's Irish, obviously, and he was the one who told us basically if something happened, if there was a riot between Protestants and Catholics, the walls would close no matter where you were. If your house was on the other side, you had to stay in a hotel, and you only had certain hotels to stay because if you were Protestant and you were on the Catholic side, you could actually be in danger just by being on that side. So it's really crazy to think how they also don't see marrying kind of like between the two as a good thing. So he did tell us a story about himself, and if you get to meet him, you'll get like as shocked as we were. He actually married a Catholic, and he is Protestant. So when his child was born, he told us a story about how both his wife and his kid was endangered. Like their health wasn't the best. They weren't just not, they were almost dying to the point. And it was really shocking that he told us that he was trying to do everything, like to get them healthier and so on. And it got to a point that him being married to a Catholic got in the way because he was in a Protestant hospital, I believe, and they wouldn't treat his wife because she was a Catholic, just because of that. And then it also would have to do with his kid, because he would have to decide, is he going to be Protestant or Catholic? And if I decide that he is Catholic, then he's not going to get treated here as well. So there were a lot of things that really shocked us a lot, because honestly, you don't expect this kind of things to be happening right now. You would think, we're more open, we are kind of working our way through this barrier, but on the other side of the world, it's still an issue. And it's a big issue because it will come in the way of life and death. So Belfast, really, I loved it. As you can see, we have the wall of Frederick Douglass, and they kind of tell us more about this important people who made the change. You can also see they took us like to this Irish pub to get more acclimated to their culture, because something that you want to understand with this fellowship is that you are there to really drink the culture up and to make your accommodations to yourself. The country in itself is not going to accommodate to you. And that was really a shocker for a lot of my peers, because they would expect things to happen the way they knew that they would happen. But no, really, you are there to see how they live and really not judge anything that they do. They see us in a perspective. So that's more of it. We also got to go to the Museum of the Titanic, which was fun. So you also get to do a lot of excursions that are out of the ordinary. We got to go hiking, which was really interesting because a lot of my peers were not hikers. So it is really a fellowship that is really open to interpretation. And our professors, that it's something that I really loved about them. They were super flexible. They, if one day something happened that was important in, if there was like politics, or if it was an important protest, they would change their schedule or their idea in order to let us be more aware of what was going on. And then moreover, I know you are asking yourself, like, what about the free time? Am I allowed to travel? Am I allowed to do what? Because that was one of our questions since the very beginning. We were in London. We also wanted to go other places. We wanted to take advantage of this great opportunity. And you do have free time, and you are allowed to travel anywhere and everywhere, as long as you abide by going to class when you're supposed to, and obviously do your assignments. So here is some of the pictures I took throughout some of my free time. I was able to, one day I decided to explore around, and I was missing the food because over there they don't use a lot of condiments, only salt and pepper, and that's sometimes. So for my taste, the food was a little bland, but I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go find something, because over there they don't have any kind of peppers or anything. So I found a Mexican store, and it was really nice because I got to meet some Mexicans who lived in the UK. So that kind of gave me more of a perspective of what it was to live over there, and like, what was it to really move yourself away from your home country. I also got to experience going to Scotland one weekend with one of my peers of the cohort. We went to Edinburgh, we went to Glasgow. It was super amazing. I had a lot of fun. We went to Windsor Castle. I went to Stonehenge with some of the other cohort, to Bath. We also got to experience Cotswolds. So Cotswolds, those who don't know what that is basically kind of the rural areas of England. And there's like 4 specific towns that are known as the Cotswolds, and that have been maintained to be more rural. So it was really nice that we also got to do that. You can go to Portobello Market. We also went to Borborough Market. And it's really what I really liked about this is that they did give us that freedom to choose to go anywhere we wanted. So I know some of my cohorts decided to go to Paris one of those weekends. And again, you just have to plan it. Once you get admitted with your cohort, I do recommend getting in touch with them and start thinking like, hey guys, do you guys want to go somewhere around this? And obviously, you still don't know your schedule, but for sure your weekends will be free. So that's something that you can start getting into planning, into an idea of, this is what I can get to experience. So those are my pictures. And lastly, another experience that I got with the fellowship was that I got to speak in Brooklyn in November of 2019. So I was invited as a speaker for that cohort of the fellowship to talk more about my experience, talk to the sponsors of this fellowship, talk to the president of CIE. It was a great experience. And obviously I got to meet people from other cohorts as well. And it was really nice to see how this fellowship is not just, oh yeah, you go and you meet your cohort, but then you never speak to them again. Really, it becomes a family. We all still talk. We all still celebrate when any of us gets like an award, or if anything happens to us, we're still part of our lives. And I think that is something that I really loved about this fellowship, is that it's more a sense of a family, and it unites us. Even if we didn't get to travel together, right now I have like this really close relationships to one of the students who went in the first cohort. And it's really nice to think like they were also in the same path as me of thinking, well, I'm not going to study abroad. It's just not going to happen. And we got to do it, and it kind of led us to become better professionals in the end. So that was my experience, guys. I don't know if you have any questions for me. I would be more than happy to answer them. If it's related to the video, if it's related to the application in general, if it's related to the class that we took. And I am also including here my email, just if you don't have questions right now, or if you want to ask me something one-on-one, I'll be more than happy to help.
Hi, good morning. I have a question. I was wondering, so when you applied, how long did it take you to know that you got admitted? Like, what was that process like? Like, how long?
Okay, so when I applied, I think I forgot that I had applied, honestly, because when I applied, our deadline was in October, I believe. It was like the 1st of October. But then all of a sudden they decided to change it to Frederick Douglass' birthday, which is February 14th. So it kind of, when I had applied, I already had put everything in. It was October, and then they let us know about it. So they didn't tell us until March. So basically they take a month from the deadline to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. So for the video, did you just like put yourself in a background and just spoke, or did you speak, or did you like put like pictures while you're and with your voice attached to it or something? I'm just kind of like what to do with it.
No, so I totally get it. I know Dr. Meinzer has the links for my video, so I don't know if she wants to share it so you guys can see it if we have time or not. But I do want to say you can make it to be whatever you want it to be. So I had peers who just sat in front of the camera and talked. I am very extra and overachiever, and I went all over YouTube, took videos, did voiceover, talked in front, put pictures. I did the whole shebang. So it's really whatever you wanted to do. Honestly, you are showcasing yourself. It's your first impression, and it's basically your only impression. So I would try to do whatever showcases who you are.
Amazing, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll interject quickly here. Morgan has put the link to Daniela's application video in the chat. So if you want to click on that now, just so you have it in your browser to watch after the session, I would do that. The link will disappear once the call is over.
Any other question?
I wonder, so we'll take more questions, but then I wonder, Daniela, could you talk a bit more about your process for starting the video and editing it? How long did it take? Any kind of other advice you would give to somebody who's as Bianca said, you look at, you're like, okay, now what? It's like, what is my first? What would be the first thing you should do if you're trying to do a video like this?
So the first thing, look at your prompt. I know this year, because they don't have an essay, they are going more based on the prompts that you hit, I think 2 out of the 4 questions or 3 out of the 4 questions. I don't remember exactly, but I would look at the prompt and answer those questions. Like, just look at those questions, see, for example, when I applied, my question was, why you? And why would this study abroad opportunity help you? Like, what impact is it going to make? So I remember I said, okay, so if I do this, it's going to help me in the future for what? And I started answering, I just started writing everything, every kind of answer that would come up into my mind. After that, I began writing a script. So I just said, okay, first of all, obviously introduce yourself. Don't worry, that's the most important thing. If you want them to remember you, introduce who you are. What do you do? What's your major? Where you study? If you're part of any extracurriculars, I remember I talked a little bit about what I had done in the past to kind of showcase more of who I was, because I did an internship before. I was in Student Government Association that time. So I just little by little put those things in. Then after that, I started kind of got more people to look at my script, because I'm not a very good writer. I can talk your ears off, but writer I am not. So I started talking to people. I showed them the prompt and I told them, am I answering the question? Do you think is my message coming across? Like, I would explain it to them, what I wanted to say, and then they would give me pointers. You know what, this, and this. And then obviously you do have a time limit, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So you also don't want to ramble on and on and on. So this would also help to kind of tell them, you know, I only have this much amount of time. So I remember I recorded myself talking to see how many words in a way I would need in order to meet the time. That way, when I looked at my script, I knew how many words I could say, kind of get an idea. Because you also know that you want to stay on task, but also you don't want to cut the important information. So that's something else I did. So then after that, I just started thinking, well, how am I gonna like record myself? I remember it took me, I think, a week to get the video done, but just because I had a different timeline, I only had a week to apply. So I was, okay, what am I gonna do? So the first thing, as I said, I'm very extra. So I am a very visual person. If I would just see myself talking in front of a camera, I was like, yeah, no, like, I'm even gonna bore myself. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make it interactive. I thought, okay, what can I do? So I decided to go all over UTEP and record different snippets of what I would say in different areas. So I went to the Lacan, I went to the College of Health Science in different spots. I went to the garden. Yeah, I was like everywhere. Then when I would start talking about certain things that I had actually pictures of, so when I talked about my internship, I put a picture of my internship. When I was talking about my family, I put a picture of my family. So I just wanted to make it more appealing to whoever was going to see it, because they will be, just keep in mind, they will be seeing hundreds of 3-4 minute videos. So if you want to stand out, you need to think of to yourself, what kind of video would make me want to keep watching it for 4 minutes? Because when I applied, they did tell us there were more than 500 applicants, I believe. And that was when it wasn't that popular still. When I think the past year, they did tell us that they had more than 1,000 applicants. So it is becoming more known by the public now, because it's been successful and they are getting it more out there. So I do recommend that if you're gonna make a video, you make sure that it's something that is gonna appeal to you. And remember, again, you want to stand out from the bunch. So those are some of the things. Once you finish your video, again, look it over 100 times. That's what I did. I made sure the transitions worked, because I am not tech savvy. I'm not video editing savvy. I just used iMovie and rolled with it. But really, they're gonna, with the video of how much effort you put in, they're gonna see it with that video. So if you just want to record yourself talking and that's how you roll, but if they see that enthusiasm, that initiative, that leadership that they're looking for, you'll stand out. Or, for example, I'm more of a visual person. I wanted to, because when I asked them, like, why did you choose me? Like, what made you choose Daniela from the bunch? And they did tell me, and they were like, you know, our video impressed us. Like, we like, you tell us now that you don't know how to do videos and all that, but you just stayed on our minds so long because you took us to where you lived and you took us to who you are as a person, and you really showcase, and obviously you showed enthusiasm, but you really took us to your life. And that is something that has always stuck with me of, yes, I'm extra, but it got me to stand out for this fellowship. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions.
I have another question, if that's okay.
Yes.
What was the course like when you were over there? Like, what was the class like? What was the purpose of the class, or what did you learn in the class?
Okay, so the class was intercultural communication. So same, I have no idea what it was, but basically it's learning how to communicate with other cultures, being more globally aware. The course in itself, really, it had no, it wasn't that structured. That is something that I really struggle with a little bit, because over here we know you get a syllabus, this is going to happen, this is what it is, you get a test. There were no tests, there were no quizzes. It was only us showing up to class, doing certain assignments. We did write a lot of reflections, which at first was a struggle because they would just tell you, write about something that inspired you today. And we went to Brixton and I was like, man, I only have one page and I don't even know, like, do I have a prompt? Do I not? And they are very flexible with that. They just let you roll with it. So we did a lot of really, again, just learning how to cope in a different culture. We did have like a cultural comparison project presentation that I really enjoyed. And you do get to choose like your topic. For example, I remember I talked about pozole and fish and chips. That was my presentation about, and I was able to kind of take those two different recipes and talk about how Mexico is a little bit different from the UK, because serving sizes, they're more individualistic, we're more community oriented, family oriented. So it's really opening, it's more of you really getting that perspective of, this is one type of culture, this is other types of cultures, and you want to be able to be culturally competent. And that's really what it is. You also get this big final project, and that I feel that was my favorite one, but more stressful as well, because it was a storytelling video that is your final project, and you choose whatever you want to talk about. I remember I think I talked about myself on that video, and you just have to talk basically for like 5 minutes. You have to create a video, tell a story, and that one was the most nerve-wracking, I think, because we knew that it was coming, but with everything that was going on, we really didn't have a lot of time to start it beforehand. So we started, I think, a week in advance, and you would just have to create a script, meet with, because you do have people who help you, obviously. We had people from this company who were basically storytellers, and they were like the people who knew how to do these videos, who taught us a little bit more and helped us with script and all that. But once you were there, you needed to do the recording, you needed to do obviously the video taking, how you imagine that story to be, how you wanted it to go. And again, if you also want to see that, it's also on YouTube, and I know Dr. Meinzer will share that link as well with you guys. And yeah, I mean, the one thing I do want to tell you guys, it's not hard. Like, I feel like that class was super flexible. They weren't hard graders, I felt. But it's just keeping in mind that, yes, you're studying abroad, and yes, you are going into another country, and it's all of these things going on, but you're still a student and you still want to do well in the class.
Daniela, can I piggyback off that for a second and just ask you what credit, if any, you received at UTEP for the course?
Yes, so I did receive, it was just one course, a 3-credit course. And because you have to do the whole, how do you call it? The,
Transfer?
yes, kind of
Equivalency form?
that form. The class I found that was most in par with the class we took was it was called the same intercultural communication, and it was like COM 3353 or something like that. So that is also something that you need to take into account, that you will need to find which class will be the most in par with. You need to look at both syllabus, you actually have to get it approved and everything like that.
Right, so we are at time for today. Daniela, thank you so much. So we'll give you a round of applause.
Thank you.
Fantastic overview of your experiences. I know we put the links in the chat to Daniela's videos, so if you haven't had a chance to click those, open those, save those for yourselves, and start your application. Go to the website, register, open up that application, and start thinking about the video. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here, and feel free to, yes, email us. Morgan put our contact information in the chat. Feel free to stay in touch with us, but you do not need to apply through UTEP any longer to apply for this scholarship. So, but we are here as a resource if you have questions. All right, take care, everyone.
Can I just add one thing, Melanie?
Of course.
You do not have to apply through UTEP for the fellowship, but if you are accepted for the fellowship, you will have to go through the study abroad office for all of the other pieces, but we'll help you with that. So that's later.
Thank you, Judy. Yes, very important. Yes, the application portion is not through UTEP, but after that, definitely be in touch with Study Abroad. And let us know if you receive it, please. So, all right. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.